This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. Now, if you haven't listened to Avoid the Maze yet, well, you're in for a nice surprise today because we're going to take another journey with Cortez Springer. And what I'm asking our listeners to do is listen to the story because I'm sure there's something in his journey that you may have experienced or you may know somebody who has. So, avoiding the maze is understanding that there are numerous ways to go from A to Z. So, Cortez, I found you through podmatch.com.
Hmm.
And when I read your short bio, it was like, this is a gentleman who can really sort of set the pace for us because a lot of us don't like dealing with some of the things that you actually talk about in your podcast.
Yeah.
So, give our listeners a little bit of information about who you are and how you got started.
All right. Well, I am Cortez Springer, host of the Cortez Hustle Show. I am the fourth born child of six children, raised by a single mom on welfare, and struggled mightily growing up in some impoverished and poor communities, trying to figure out this thing called life. And as a young man, we didn't have much. We were literally that family that for weeks at a time, it was pitch black in our house because we had no electricity. We were burning candles. For months at a time in our home, we were boiling water on hot plates to take a warm bath and try to keep ourselves clean because we had no gas. But even with all of those harsh realities, our house was somehow still the house, the place to be for all the kids in the neighborhood. My mom did a very good job of helping us to understand that we were broke and not poor, meaning we were in a temporary situation where we lacked resources. We didn't have a permanent mindset that would keep us in a perpetual state of poverty. But I did have to ask her, Karen, quite frequently, how long is this temporary situation going to go on?
Yeah.
And ultimately, that led to me as a young man trying to figure out how to make my own money. I figured that if I could just feed myself, that would take a lot of burden off my mom. So my brothers and I would do everything from raking leaves, shoveling snow, to cleaning garages, pumping gas. I'm old enough to remember when gas pumps went from full service to self service. And
Right.
when they changed to the new pump system, not a lot of people knew how to work the pumps. And then those who didn't want to get out and get their hands dirty. So my brothers and I would be at the gas station and we would pump gas for change. I remember we could get a box of fried rice for 90 cents. So we would go do that, and that's how we kind of hustled up on our food money, our video game money, because oftentimes mom would feed us and she wouldn't eat. So I figured if I could feed myself, then maybe she could eat a little bit. But that was a blessing and a curse, Karen, because it ultimately pushed us down a path where the older guys in our community recognized our hustle. And without positive male figures in the entrepreneurial space, all we had was the drug dealers, the hustlers, and the pimps. And they saw our ability to go out and hustle and make money. So we got recruited early on. And I became a street corner pharmacist for most of my teen years. And that was rough as well. And really, um, it took a while for me to learn that that was just the entrepreneur in me that was perverted, right? So I was able to escape the street life without going in jail. Obviously, I'm here, so I didn't die. But that caused a lot of mental stress, and a lot of things that I saw in that world really scarred me, but also it drives me today to be that influence that those kids don't currently have. I believe if we saw upstanding entrepreneurs, we'd have gone that way, but we didn't see any. So
Right.
we kind of went the way of the people who were making the money. We thought that's the money that we wanted to make, and that's kind of what we did. But that was my journey as a young man growing up in a small community called Wellston, right out of St. Louis, right outside of St. Louis City. and just struggling and trying to figure out how to make my own way. But I knew that entrepreneurship was kind of a saving grace, just a matter of finding the right opportunity and learning the skill sets. And that's kind of a little bit of my journey. But the mental health side of where it began started before that, and we can get into that as well.
Well, I like a couple of things how you phrased it, that you weren't poor, you were broke. And I
Yes.
like that because poor indicates that you've got absolutely nothing.
Hmm.
And you had family, you
Yep.
had uh, at least a mother who is there to say, hey, I'm going to take you under my wings. I'm going to do the best that I can do. And
Yes.
taught you that, sometimes doing the best is very enriching.
Hmm.
Um, I know when I was growing up until I was 9 years old, my two brothers and I shared a bedroom. We lived in a two-house flat.
Hmm.
We thought everybody lived that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and my oldest brother is 8 years older than me. So poor kid, as a teenager, he had a baby sister basically in his bedroom.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and then we have a brother between us. And again, I really look back and feel blessed because my parents taught me, how to share, how to go through difficult times and
Mhm.
make them much better than they are.
Yeah.
Um, so today you have a podcast, and you said before we
Mhm.
got started today that typically you sit on my side of the
Yeah.
screen, um, and you very rarely talk about yourself. But the guests that you are bringing guests onto your show to talk about issues to make things better today, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, so the show is the Cortez Hustle Show, and what we do is, I believe, Karen, that for working Americans, the best course of action to take to elevate your socioeconomic status is to leverage the free enterprise system through entrepreneurship. So I bring a lot of entrepreneurs onto the show, and we chronicle their journeys of what led them down the path to becoming entrepreneurs and starting those businesses. And it's a very unique journey for everyone. And that's the reason that I do the show. Most people have one idea or one picture of entrepreneurship in their heads, and that's it. And because of that, if you don't think your skill sets or your emotional state or your financial state lines up with that picture, you assume that you can't become an entrepreneur or you can't start a business. But when we show and highlight all of the various ways that one can do entrepreneurship and start businesses, even from their home, even from their computer, even from their cell phone, without necessarily having a storefront or investing a ton of money to get started, it opens up the conversation and the idea in a lot more people's mind that, hey, I have a gift, I have a skill, I have a talent, I have something that's special about me that is marketable. I just need to get around the right people to learn how to put those things forward. So we bring those guys on and we talk about their journey, their childhood. A lot of people think that entrepreneurs are born, and that's not the case. A lot of people think that people have lost jobs, so they were forced to start businesses. That wasn't the case,
Right.
and a lot of times, sure, that could be a motivating factor, but there's a lot of reasons that people start businesses, and it helps them in a lot of ways that we don't typically talk about, right? We think about, I start a business, I make a ton of money, life is easy. Well, the journey of getting to the lot of money is usually more important, more fulfilling, more rewarding than the pot of money at the end of the rainbow. So we like to highlight those kinds of things to help spread this narrative that you can be financially successful and even well off in a country that affords so many opportunities if you learn to leverage the system that we have before us.
Well, and I think the other thing that you have to learn is what is your interpretation of success,
Hmm.
and how how do you think you can get there? Now, I know when I started working on New Cleveland Radio with my son,
Hmm.
initially we were setting him up. He wanted to have um, a sports networking show that was going to be unlike anybody else. And he had some great ideas.
Hmm.
Um, Although 3 months into him getting started, he went to work for our local baseball team, who are now the Guardians, not the Indians. Um, and he couldn't talk sports anymore. That was off
Wow.
his plate. And I said, you
Hmm.
know what? I'm going to take it over and we're going to talk about positive energy and how do you get it? And
Hmm.
how can you wake up one day and say, hey, I want to start this business and be able to start it without, um, being worried about how much money do I have to raise first? You know,
Hmm.
you have to have your idea and then you
Yeah.
have to have the passion to go forward with it. And sometimes
Hmm.
you can do it on a shoestring, and sometimes you really do have to have that bucket of money.
Yeah.
But you have to have that positive mindset. And when I took over the station, that's exactly what I said to everybody. I have allowed negativity to drive me most of my life.
Hmm.
I haven't gotten where I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
Now that I'm positive, I can take those steps each day. And
Hmm.
so I believe that when people come to you and they're talking about, oh, you know, I want to start this business, but I have a full time job, I have a family, this whole list of things.
Hmm.
How can I do it? How do you get them started? Because you're not going to throw away the full time job, most likely.
Correct. Yeah, you hit on one of my favorite things, and that is the passion. Every single one of us, Karen, has a gift, talent, special ability, something that we love, something that we are better at than most people. And a lot of times we don't even know why.
Right.
And sometimes we don't even recognize the value in it. So the first thing that I like to do is help them to identify those things. What is it that you are passionate about? What is it that you love doing? What is it that you were doing 5 years ago that you're still doing today, even if it's just for fun and you can see yourself doing it 5 years from now? And when we can identify those things, what I like to do is point out to them other people that are doing it and making money from it, in a lot of cases, who are less talented at it. And that kind of turns on the light bulbs for them because, again, everybody has a sometimes a singular idea of what entrepreneurship is, and they just need to know the possibilities. And then we simply start them out small. If you love baking, then maybe you're just on your Facebook page posting some tips about how to get your cake out of the pan without destroying it, right?
Right.
Because that's
Exactly.
something that you love to do, and you start getting feedback. And when people start asking you questions about that thing, then you can see that you have a market for the information that you're passionate about. So I kind of start everybody out with, what is it that you're passionate about? What do you think you're gifted at? And then I help them identify markets for those things in a few different areas. Hey, if you love to do this thing, then somebody's already out there doing it. Let's go and do a little bit of research and see how they're doing it, how well they're doing, what are some of the methods that they are doing, and can you model or mimic any of those things to build a business in a similar fashion? And usually the light bulbs come on from that point, Karen, and they never shut off because there is a gazillion and one ways, especially now since we have this wonderful invention that is now matured at 25, 26 years old, called the internet. And then we have all of these applications that live on that platform
Right.
called social media. It is very easy to run a business concurrently with a full-time job. I know my parents and my grandparents, if they wanted to have what we call today a side hustle, they would literally have to wait until after their 9 to 5 is done and then they have to go beat the streets to try to
Right.
make something happen. But today we have technology, we have the automation, we have the different platforms that we can leverage, and we could build systems that are working for us in our business while we're using our time and working a full-time job. So it starts with identifying gifts, talents, and special abilities, then researching to see how other people are using similar gifts to make money and seeing where we can model some of those things.
You know, I love that you said that because I typically do not take a vacation. If we
Mhm.
go away, my computer, my soundboard goes with me and I just keep working.
Yeah.
But this is the first time that I took my knowledge exactly the way you're saying. My social
Mhm.
media was already running. My clients all knew that for that week, there would be no recording.
Yeah.
But we had on social media timed that go back and listen to this podcast. Okay.
Mhm.
And yeah, did I check my computer that week while I was away? Yeah, I checked it,
Mhm.
but I did more personal things rather than work.
Yeah.
And people, we were still getting our hits. Everything
Mhm.
was working for us. And I said to my husband, I now am going to continue to practice what I preach
Mhm.
because you are right. You can have more than one thing going on in your life
Yeah.
because of social media, but you have to know how to use it properly.
Mhm.
And that can be a trick for a lot of people.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And here's the thing. It's all a matter of time. And if you want something bad enough, you'll make the necessary sacrifices to get it. I still, to this day, for the life of me, can't understand how in 2021, going into 2022, you run into people who are still saying, I don't do computers.
Yeah.
You're running into people who are still saying, I don't do the internet. I don't do social media. Well, we are about to enter a space called the metaverse. If you're not even on computers, you are really going to get left behind as we continue to go into this virtual reality based, augmented reality world that we are entering into. And all of the information is there. A person who says, I have a business and I don't necessarily know anything about social media can literally schedule a weekend, lock themselves in a room, watch shows like this, read blogs, read other articles, listen to podcasts, maybe buy a course or two, and come out of a 72-hour binge on Facebook and literally be ahead of most people. Now,
Oh,
do they still have to put into practice what they learned that weekend? Absolutely. Will they learn some lessons and doing the thing that you just can't learn when you're reading something? Absolutely. But with all of the information at our fingertips, a person can become proficient in just about anything in a matter of days versus months if they have that type of time. Now, I get it if your full time life doesn't afford you 72 hours to binge. Well, just understand that if you're doing 1 hour a day, it's going to take you 72 days to
right.
get that same level of knowledge packed in. But you can collapse time in a lot of different ways. One of the things that I'm learning is to listen to the things that I listen to at speed, 1.5 times, 2 times, so I can hear the same 30 minutes of information, but I can hear it in 15 minutes,
Right.
right? Because I can still understand the speaker and that kind of stuff. And if I need to stop and rewind, I can. But little hacks like that could literally have the average person with an above average knowledge and skill set in a matter of days if they're willing to put in the time, energy, and effort.
Well, I remember as a young girl growing up in the city of Detroit, my father on a Sunday afternoon was watching some sort of farm show, and they were
Mm-hmm.
talking about raising rabbits and
Mm-hmm.
how you could sell their fur, how you sold them for meat. And so my father did some research. Again, this is before computers in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And he went out and he got two male rabbits and 4 female rabbits, and he
Mhm.
built cages in our garage, and
Mhm.
he started raising rabbits to the point
Wow.
that he had to go out to a farm and actually have a like a hen house for rabbits. And
Mhm.
yet my father worked a full-time job.
Yep.
So he made sure that this farm wasn't too far from his full-time job. He'd get
Mhm.
up early in the morning, go out there, check on the rabbits. At the end of the day, check on the rabbits. And on the weekend, he took my brothers and myself out there and my mom, and we cleaned up the rabbit hutches. And his only social media basically was either taking an ad out in a newspaper
Mhm.
or putting something up on a light pole saying,
Yeah.
rabbits for sale. And it was his desire to do this that
Mhm.
my brothers and I, we have all done projects like this throughout our whole life. And like you
Yes.
said, if you want to do it, you find the time.
Yep.
If somebody makes you do it, nah, you're not going to find the time.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
go ahead.
Yeah, I love that because that's where we are. Now imagine seeing something like that and developing that passion today. And it's like, wait a minute, I could literally turn this into a full-fledged business. And I'm sure he did very well with posting flyers on street poles. Imagine if he had social media, right? And what he could do with that passion and that love for rabbits. Imagine if he could join a Facebook community full of people raising rabbits and the exchange of information and how quickly he could have grown his knowledge and
Ex-
his network
ex-
and then here's the one thing. I had a guy tell me one time. I snuck into a training by this guy named Trevor Otts, and I heard him tell the group of women that he was training, there's more in what you know than what you do. I was like, wait, what is he talking about? And then he expounded on it and he said, listen, all of us have a certain amount of knowledge and we use that knowledge to do a thing. But I don't care what it is that you do and how much you charge for what you do, there's still a cap on how many times you can do it because it requires your physical effort. But if we took what we knew and we put it in the form of a course, an ebook, a training, a workshop, or some sort of digital asset. Now imagine your father gained all of this knowledge and experience working with rabbits over the years. If he could have put it into a course or a book that's easily accessible, he makes one income stream doing the physical work of raising
Right.
rabbits. And then he makes a separate income stream for everybody else who wants to learn how to raise rabbits.
Exactly.
And you have that capacity today, and it is very effortless to put out a YouTube video or a training course or create an ebook around your knowledge. So that's one of the things that a lot of people are missing in the side hustle world. When it comes to online education, Forbes put out an article in 2018 that says by 2025, online education will be a $1 billion per day industry. Now, Karen, that was before the pandemic.
Right.
What do you think it is now?
Oh,
Right? So,
it's growing. It's growing.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, I think learning to leverage one's knowledge and skill set and digitizing it is another great way to participate in entrepreneurship where it won't take a ton of your time. And that is something that you can do very easily in conjunction with a full time job.
So, what do you say to somebody who says, you know, everybody is trying to get a piece of the pie? Okay.
Mhm.
Everybody is, you know, trying to sell their blogs and they're trying to write books. They're
Mhm.
doing podcasts. How can I get ahead? And I've had a few people who have said this to me just recently because on the weekend I do IT training, and they
Mhm.
say to me, you know, well, you actually get paid by a company to come into your IT training. Isn't this more profitable? Well, yeah, it's an immediate paycheck. You are right. Okay. I go in, I do a certain thing, I get paid for it. I like it, but it's not my passion. So when they look at me and they go, where are you in the ranking? If Dr. Phil is number one, where are you? And I go, opposite end of the spectrum. And I don't care. And the reason I don't care is I have listeners who listen to me that probably aren't going to listen to Dr. Phil, or they are, but they're going to think they can't reach that. But my neighbors, my community, I'm one of them.
That's right.
And if I can do it, why can't they?
That's right. Yeah, I think a lot of people have that understanding, or that is not even a truth in understanding, but they feel that a market is already saturated. Well, everybody is already doing that. How can I compete? Right? Or they have the misunderstanding that if I get started, I will never make any money because I can't make the top of the list, right? Well, when you understand how companies grow and thrive, there is a hamburger stand somewhere in America, in every city, that is making enough money to where the family who owns that hamburger stand and their staff are well supported, but that hamburger stand is not McDonald's. So I think people miss that there's a lot of room between the bottom and the very top.
Right.
That hamburger stand isn't going to serve a billion hamburgers because they don't have the system, they don't have the worldwide network of stores and that kind of stuff. But there is a living that can be carved out for everybody in every respective industry. I like to say it like this, Karen. All the information is free. All of it. You can Google probably 87 to 90% of the information in the world can be found online for free.
Right.
The other 10% is classified, right? You're not going to find that kind of stuff for free, but pretty much about 87% of all the information is free. But you know what people pay for? They pay for your perspective and your presence. See, I'm going to pay to get around Karen because there's only one Karen. I'm going to pay and I'm going to invest time to listen to Karen's show because Karen is the only one on this planet with that perspective based on the things that Karen has gone through in her life, based on her education, her background, her connections, and the way she's lived, what she believes. There's only one perspective, and I can't get that from anywhere else. So in order for me to get Karen's point of view, I have to be in Karen's presence and I have to listen to Karen. A lot of people don't understand the power in authenticity and humble beginnings. The reason, Karen, that I do my show is because yes, I'm building a multinational, multi-billion dollar media conglomerate, right? That's number one, and it's in the works. I'm building that. The other reason that I do my show is because I don't know about you, Karen, but I would give my left arm if I could go back and listen to my great grandfather, who was a sharecropper in Nettleton, Mississippi, built a business, owned land, raised a family of some 11 to 13 kids, depending on which one of his nephews also was living in a 2-room shack in Nettleton, Mississippi. And I could go back and listen to, in his own words, how he did that. So I do a podcast every day because I'm not only talking to myself first and foremost, because I'm talking about the ideas and the things that I want to incorporate in my life, the things that I want to give birth to. I'm also talking to, right now, a small community who get up with me and listen to me every morning. But more importantly, Karen, I'm talking to my unborn grandchildren and great grandchildren about the building of the empire that they're going to inherit. And there's going to be no question about, was it luck? No, it's documented that he said on Karen's show that he was building a multi-billion-dollar international media conglomerate, right? So I think people are missing that. And then also the humble beginnings. Everybody want to start at the top. No, I built a Facebook page now that has over 110,000 followers, but I started with one follower.
Yep.
Right? Nobody wants to start and work their way up. And here's the thing, your income and your benefit of doing that starting at the beginning is going to grow with you. No, you're not making the income right now, Karen, that you're going to be making 2 years from now when your followers and your downloads quadruples or 10x. But it is still a benefit to you. And then the last thing, people don't take into consideration passion. Karen, whether there's anybody listening or nobody listening, I love doing what I do, so I will be doing it anyway. So why not
Exactly.
record the whole thing and let people listen to it? Not even if they don't listen to it today, this technology makes this stuff available forever. So maybe the people that I'm intended to bless with my podcast, they haven't even started listening to the podcast yet. Maybe 5 years from now, those are the people who are going to go and binge listen to my entire catalog. I don't know, but I'm doing what I love to do. I don't mind starting from humble beginnings, and I'm not only talking to myself, but I'm also talking to my unborn descendants about what it is that I'm building for them to inherit.
You know, I am finding that every time I have a guest on, like yourself,
Mhm.
you grew up in the South, I grew up in the North. Okay. I grew up as a white Jewish girl. You grew up as a Black, I don't know what religion, but totally different. And yet our concepts are exactly the same. We
Yeah.
want to know where we came from and
Mhm.
how that is affecting us today, so that what
Mhm.
we're doing today, how it's going to affect the future. And
Mhm.
I always, even as a young child, as an adult, I always ask the questions: where did you come from? How did you get here? What was it like?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't imagine. My mother's parents uh, came from Russia. My
Mhm.
grandfather took that trip 3 times back and forth.
Mhm.
I can't imagine how he did it. How did he get from Ellis Island to Detroit, Michigan? But
Mhm.
when he told me the stories, okay, I then, as a young adult, had to go to Ellis Island because I had
Mhm.
to see where did
Yeah.
he get off. And it does make me humble
Mhm.
because he came to the United States. He, had his family, he had a business, and he was respected in his community. To
Mhm.
him, he was the wealthiest man in the world.
Yeah.
And that's what I want people to see. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily opening up your wallet and having a big wad of money. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, have you lived your life, and fulfilled it? And
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing, because I'm introducing you now to a group of listeners and saying, hey, you may not have heard of Cortez before, but now
Mhm.
you know who he is.
That's right.
What knowledge does Cortez have that might help you move forward? And
Mhm.
if you don't have it, that's fine. They can move on.
Yeah.
But just know, like you said, it's out there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and that's the thing that really drives me as well is the whole point for me, like Les Brown says, I want to live full and die empty. And I want to make sure that I leave a legacy, right? I want to make sure that people know that I was here, right? And I want to leave my mark on this world. And I think when we understand the power of using this kind of medium to make an impact on the lives of others, and here's what's funny, Karen, you and I will never know the lives that we've touched and the things that people took away from a show like this and implemented, and it transformed their lives forever. I had a guy who joined my book program, and I was helping him write a book, and he told me something that I said to him over 5 years ago. He said, I was talking about how in most cases, we will never have every step of the journey mapped out for us. You start where you are with what you have, and the things that you need will be revealed to you. And I made an analogy that says, hey, if all you have and you're looking to build something amazing, and all you have is the hammer, you start with the hammer, and as you work with that hammer, eventually a saw will come available. You work with the hammer and the saw, and eventually a nail gun becomes available. And I had forgotten I said that, Karen. And he brought that back to my remembrance, and he's like, bro, I remember from back then when you said that, and everything that I've done from that point, I just start working with what I had, and it's amazing what I need just shows up in my life.
Yep.
And to that point, I don't know. He just happened to relay that to me, but there's countless people who have listened to the sound of your voice, Karen, and heard something that sparked them and sent them on a different path that has made a huge difference in their lives. So to the people who are trying to figure out where are you with your podcast in relations to in my world, it is a Joe Rogan or someone like that. It's like, it doesn't matter if I've impacted one person in my 218 episodes, it was all worth it to me.
Well, you are so right. Going back to what I do on the weekend, I had a customer yesterday who actually came in and said they wanted to start a podcast. What kind of computer do they need? What kind of software? And the first thing I noticed, they're holding an iPhone. And I said, in reality, you have the instrument in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at me and they said, oh, that's not professional. I said, it's okay. Got to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I walked them through a number of things of what they could use, what they absolutely needed, what they didn't need. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And my big thing was you have to have the passion to do it. And you have to know what you want to talk about. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I could not do a sports show. Why?
Right.
I love sports. I don't know, who's the running back and who's the guard in football. And
Yeah.
in basketball, they look like a bunch of, spiders running up and down. I know baseball better, but I really don't know all the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, so I had to find something that I was passionate about.
Yeah.
And what I'm passionate about is I've struggled my life, but I've gotten through my struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So let me share that, because people, I hear all the time, oh, I just can't get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
So yesterday, as I talked to this person and I was with them for over an hour, they just at the end said, you just gave me so much information.
Mm-hmm.
So glad I walked in here today at this time when you were here.
Yeah.
I was walking on a cloud, not because I knew more than them, but because I connected.
Yeah.
And, I gave them something for free. And to me, in this world, getting something for free is not always easy.
Yeah.
But it was worthwhile. And
Absolutely.
that's what you do as well in your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So tell people how they can find your podcast now that we've been talking about it.
Absolutely. Well, it's on all of your podcasting networks. It is the Cortez Hustle Show. It is the business podcast for the entrepreneur of the 21st century. If you aspire to start a business, if you already have a business and you're looking for a community to be a part of, to learn from and to grow with, or you just like to support businesses, maybe you know people who want to support a business, then you can turn them on to the Cortez Hustle Show. We have every type of entrepreneur that you can imagine has been on the show, sharing their respective journeys, how it started, how it's going, what they plan to do in the future. So the Cortez Hustle Show .com is a website if you want to see our archive shows. We are pretty up to date with, I think, now over 100 of our 200 episodes are archived on that site. So you can go to iTunes, Stitcher, Amazon, wherever you like to listen to podcasts, The Cortez Hustle Show, or if you want to see the archives, then go to thecortezhustleshow.com.
Well, we'll make sure that's on the show notes, so nobody has an excuse not to find you.
That's right.
But I want to thank you for being with us today and opening our eyes to knowing that, this is not just for a select few. Anybody can move ahead. As you described your upbringing, yes, you had a loving family, but it was a struggle. And
Yeah.
look where you are today. And
Absolutely.
that's commendable. And your mom needs, the recognition that she brought up some good kids.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me, Karen. This was an amazing conversation and dialogue. I'm starting to like being on this side of the microphone. So thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We'll have you again too. All right.
Awesome.
Thank
Love it.
you. Bye-bye now.